and welcome to episode 177 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. Going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today. It's going to be a great time. I'm so glad you're here. How are you doing? I hope things are well. I hope you had a good weekend. Let's get into it. Let's see here. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit, lower that down, and show you my screen. So here we go, episode 177. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I don't know what I'm going to be doing today. I haven't actually written a whole bunch down here. I have some things I need to get to, so maybe we'll get to it today. And I'll kind of fill in the agenda post facto. But for now, no plan survives breakfast, and right now there is no plan, so it's self-fulfilling prophecy. The other thing to keep in mind is that this agenda that we're looking at is something that you, the viewer, have access to. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, just slide out the handouts section to your right. And if you're watching this on YouTube, open the video description down below. And if you're watching this on Twitch, then here I go, about to drop the agenda in the Twitch chat. Booyah, there it is. What else is there to say? There's an episode guide. We should check it out. There's a pull request actually to the episode guide. So the episode guide is completely viewer driven. It's something that I put together at the suggestion of, I think, Sam Foster a couple of years ago, and I set up the structure, but basically viewers just like you have been submitting parts of the episode guide. Probably the most prolific submitter is SmurfD, and if I remember correctly, then there is a pull request for last week's episode here on the GitHub repo, and we can actually merge that in first thing. So let me just, potential security vulnerability. Well, it's just a web page, so it doesn't really matter, but I'll look at that later. Let's see, SmurfD. He's got a link to the Airmo event. Let's make sure that the agenda is the right one. 176 it should be. Yep. These are the topics I covered. It's the subframe crash try push. That actually landed. Not dispatching picture-in-picture like the mouse events whenever we click. We wrote tests for that last week, and that's been fixed. So we no longer dispatch mouse events, which is good. And we also made it easier to resize the picture-in-picture window by mouse dragging on Windows. It's a new test. Yeah, this all looks good. This is what we did last week. It was great. So I'm going to merge that in. That's a great summary from SmurfD. So thank you very much, SmurfD. Here you go. You're the best. And always say thank you to your contributor. So that's episode 176, and that should drop into this list shortly. What would be really great actually is if there was also like a built-in search function, so you could like search the different topics that I covered. So for example, if you're a Gecko hacker and you want to know, what was that episode where Mike Conley was hacking on printing and struggling with printing, you'd know that it was like one of the first things I did, and it would be like episodes 1 through, wow, I didn't really, some of these are really empty, but at least 1 through, probably at least 1 through 3. And who knows, maybe there are a bunch of other episodes in here where I dealt with printing. And there's episode 176, just dropped in. Thank you, SmurfD. There it is. Great. So what do I want to do today? I want to do a couple of things. The first thing I want to do is I have this build here of Firefox that I just built. A build that I just built. It's the tip from just this morning, and I want to make it work with Fission. I want to create a new profile. I want to make a Fission testing profile. And if you're not sure what Fission is the project to make Firefox, it's like an evolution of the electrolysis project. And if you're not sure what the electrolysis project was, let me start there. The electrolysis project was to break Firefox down from a single process to a parent process with multiple child processes that run web content. And that happened a couple of years ago. And Fission is the next logical step, where now we have different subframes loading in their own content processes. And this is still very in early days, but it kind of works. And I want to show you it working. So in order to do that, I want to actually create a new, mock run P. I want to create a new profile, because you have to set certain profile switches or preferences in order to get Fission working. So here's a brand new profile, and now the preferences I need to set, I actually wrote them down, I think, in a note that I think is closed here. Yeah, I have to make sure that web render is enabled. That's the first step. Web render. Make sure graphics web render all is set to true. Picture caching is set to false. And then the Fission OOP attribute, which doesn't exist, but I'm going to add it and set it to true. There's a Windows only step here that I don't have to do. And then restart Firefox to avoid a crash. And Fission user, that's one we'll start with. Okay, so so far so good. And then I restart Firefox, navigate to this website. So these subframes are actually running out of process. They kind of flash in and out. What does it say? Trigger a composing update by using the keyboard or to move focus from the location field to the content area. Well, they're not exactly working. Let me reload the page. There we go. And I can show you that these are loading out of process because of the bug I fixed not that long ago. So what I did was I made it so that, well, we have this interface that allows you to get the browsing context, get children. So a browsing context is like a new way of looking at like a Azul browser. Like it's something that we have access to and represents like a thing that loads a document effectively. But it can be used across process, and depending on which process you're in, I'm using process and process interchangeably. It's probably weird. Depending on which process you're in, you'll have different abilities and properties on that browsing context. So in this case, I'm running the browser console in the parent process, and so what I have access to when I look at the browsing context is I can get the children of the browsing context, and the browsing context of the selected browser is like the root document loader, and then I get its children, and that's each of the subframes. So there are 3 subframes in this page, this one, and this one, and then I'm getting the first subframe, which is this one, and then I don't have access to its doc shell because that's something you only get access to if you're in the same process as the frame. I don't have access to the embedder element, but I do have access to the current window global. And then I can get access to the remote tab, and then access to the OSP ID. So now I know which process ID is running this subframe. And now I can crash that subframe if I do kill. Here, let me make it so that we can see both of these at the same time. I'll do kill, sig abort, and then I'm gonna kill that subframe, and see we get this little sad subframe. And that's what I was working on in this bug 1533955. So what we have now is subframes running out of process. Pretty exciting, and that's not super great that they can crash, but it's better than the whole thing crashing. Like this is strictly better than the whole tab crashing, which is what would happen if, like, in current E10s, if a subframe caused something in current release of Firefox, if a subframe caused anything that would result in a crash, it would bring the whole tab down. And so now we can just make the subframe crash, which is nice. Okay, so what did I want to do with Fission today? Well, I wanted to make it so that I wanted to convert a part of the browser so that it works with out-of-process iframes. And the part I want to convert is this thing called the permit unload behavior, or the permit unload function. It's not it's not the part of the browser I'm super excited about, because the actual mechanism is a little annoying. If you've ever seen, let me show you what I mean. Is there an example here? I want like a demo. I guess I'll go with the W3 Schools example. So the permit unload thing is what is run inside the content area whenever the user has requested that the tab close or the window close. One or either, or like the tab close, the window close, or the application close. That's like the 3 tiers of closing a thing. And W3 Schools is taking its time. Maybe I should just create my own little. Maybe I should create my own little demo. 502 bad gateway. What's a good? Here, I'll just create my own little demo here at Mozilla.org. I'm going to open up the console, and I'm going to say function on before unload e.prevent default and return something. Just return a string. I think that's what you need to do. It's really weird. And then document body on before unload equals on before unload. Now I'm pretty sure if I interact with this page now and I attempt to close this page, yeah. So we get this dialog, which you may have seen before. This is the thing that I'm trying to get working with Fission, and it's not the greatest thing, but it's an important thing. It's part of the web spec. I think both Mozilla and Google, at least, would love to get rid of this thing when there is talk about using something called the page lifecycle API to eventually deprecate on before unload. Because on before unload is like the user has expressed an intent, and then having the user confirm it, like this adds a whole bunch of friction, and it actually it architecturally speaking, it makes things a bit complicated for the browser, because the user clicks on something and we have to send a message down to content to say, hey, do you really want to close? And content might be frozen, and so it might never respond. So we have to handle that case. And then it might respond and say, no, I don't want to close, so show the dialogue. Or it might say, yes, go ahead and close. But both of those messages might come like way after an acceptable amount of time, because who knows how busy that content process is. So we have to like spin an event loop, and we have a timer, and if it's like it doesn't show up in time, then we close the tab. It's really a mess. Okra says, I often get this dialog in Gmail after I mark all mail as read and want to close the tab. Right. What that usually means, what Gmail is probably doing, is telling you that there's some state that hasn't been correctly saved to Google Gmail's servers. Like it's probably in the middle of maybe sending a whole bunch of requests in the background, especially if you're like doing a bunch of things in a batch. I have a feeling that if I remember correctly, in some cases Gmail will like do requests in batches, and if something hasn't gone out yet, it's going to try and prevent you from leaving, or it's going to prompt you to leave, to not leave, because some of the changes you made haven't been persisted on Gmail's side yet, and that's when this dialog comes up. And there are other places where this dialog will come up. If you have some kind of, and then Okras goes, yet when I reload all mail, it's marked read correctly. Well, then maybe it's something else. I mean, in the end, it's the website's responsibility to clear the before unload handler whenever they're done doing something. So who knows? Who knows what Gmail is doing? But the page is the one that's responsible for setting this event handler. And then if you clear the event handler, that's whenever the tab will close normally. So it's possible. Who knows what Gmail is doing? Who knows? Those crazy Google people. So I want to get this thing working with fission. And it's a little bit complicated because before what we do with E10S is we'd send a single message down to the top level frame and say, walk your document tree, because any subframe can also set that before unload event handler. Walk your document tree and see if any of them need to prevent unload from occurring. So run the before unload event in each of them. And it will do like, I think, a breadth first, is it breadth or depth? I think it's breadth first walk through the frame tree, and then it will return a response to the parent, either, yep, we ended up being in permit unload, so we're now showing the user a message, and that means that the content process is like spinning an event loop, showing this dialog, or it will return a message that says, no, you're all good to close the tab, or it won't return a message at all, or it'll be late in returning a message, in which case the parent closes the tab. So what we want to do in the fission case is we want to message each of the children, so if you think suppose we have like a very complicated hierarchy of frames. Some of those frames are maybe loaded in process, some of them might be loaded out of process, because with fission what we're hoping to do is to kind of group frames that are in the same domain into the similar content processes. So like if there's a content process that has bank.com in it, then the only subframes that are the only other types of frames that are in that content process will be bank.com. Similarly, if you're in if you've got evil.com, they're all kind of isolated in their own content process. And this is an attempt to make the browser and the web safer by preventing things like Meltdown and Spectre, those vulnerabilities, making it a lot harder to, basically impossible to exploit Spectre and Meltdown until they find some way of like reading memory across process boundaries. Anyways, so what do we need to do? Well, with fission, like I said, some of the frames are going to be out of process and some of the frames are going to be in process. And so what we need are like the roots of all of the frames that are like the root of a, so part of the problem is like nomenclature. How do I explain this? Maybe I should draw it. First of all, let's start by creating a note. This is the bug that's actually going to be ported, or the bug that's actually going to track this. Okay, so let's create a note here, and I'll put that there. So suppose we have this structure of, I'm going to create kind of a simple structure. Let's see. Let's say each of these O's is a subframe, but if it's just an O, then it's in, well, how about let's have each letter represent a different process. So now I, J, maybe this one's loading an O again. This one is loading in J. This one's loading an I and I. And then who knows? Maybe it's like K, K, O, J, I, K. I just made a bunch of stuff up. But suppose we have a frame tree that kind of looks like this, where some of the frames are in process O. So we've got, let's list the number of processes we have. We have processes O, I, J, K. So 4 processes. And then we have like the parent process, which is talking to it. I'll call that capital P. Whoop. And I'll put a process boundary here, or the parent content boundary is what I'll call it. And so parent talks to all of these subframes And what used to happen is, because these would all be, in this case, O in E10S, we'd tell the top level frame, hey, just walk your tree and run permit unload on each. But we can't do that anymore because, or we could, but it'd be kind of complicated to make like each content process send messages to other content processes and then like wait effectively to get the same kind of behavior. Because that's the other thing. We have to maintain the expected behavior whenever we're doing this kind of like tree walking. Otherwise, pages will like behave strangely. So what we are doing in this case is I looked at how Google Chrome does this, because Google Chrome pushed out, I think, subframe per process per subframe like a year ago or something. And the way they do it is how I'm hoping to pull this off. So the first step is, once you have a notion of all the different processes, you need the roots. The roots of I'm going to star the roots of each contiguous subtree. I don't know if that's the right nomenclature, but like I'm going to put a star next to the name, and hopefully I will be able to like describe what I mean. Put a star there, star there. Whoops, I've broken my tree a little bit. Star here. And a star here. Okay, so most of them have stars actually. This is a very, I think this is kind of what I would call a degenerate case of a subframe that's doing all this sort of very complicated frame trees. But I starred some of these things, but not all of them. Why? So notice how the children of this O are both O. Like look at the parents. So in this case, the parents of both of these nodes are on the same process. So you go up until you reach the root where you're all in the same process, and then you star. Same, like let's do that entire process down here actually. So we start at K, look at the parent. Is it the same process? No, star yourself. Okay, over here, same thing. Check your parent. Is it the same process? No, star yourself. And so on and so on. So we get here, when we get to I, we look at the parent. Are you the same process? Is it the same process? Yes, don't star yourself. And then K stars itself. Then we go up a level. O, star yourself, because yeah, I is not the same process, same here. I and J both don't have, they're not in the same process, so star yourselves. And then here, these were both starred, and then these are not starred, and then this one is starred. So for each of those stars is what I would consider the root of a contiguous subtree of frames, like of in-process subtrees. Roots of each contiguous in-process frame subtree. It's like the worst nomenclature, but that's what I'm going to call it. And what I want to do is I want to message each of those roots at the same time and say, do you want to unload? Are you allowed to unload? So that means sending in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 simultaneous messages asking these individual frames if they want to unload. And the reason for that is because we want to do it in a particular order. So, like some of these, even though they're in the same process, we don't want to run this one, then this one, then this one right after the other, all because they're in the same process. We want to make sure that we continue the sort of like the breadth first traversal, but you want to do some of it in parallel. So it's like a hybrid approach where we for the things that are contiguous, we message them in the same order, it'd be breadth first. And then for things that are not contiguous, for things that break up, they're messaged in the order, they should receive the messages in the same order. Like we should dispatch messages to this K, then this K, then this K in that order, and they should be received by that content process in that order. Now, in the event that these Ks are not, for some reason, in the same content process, maybe because, like in this case, K, each of these is a different domain, but suppose we split out this one into its own content process, then this one might receive its message first. That's possible. But in the event that they're in the same content process, because of message ordering guarantees, we'll want to broadcast this one, then this one, then this one, in that order, like one right after the other, and then it will process this one, then this one, then this one. I don't know if I'm being very clear, but that's what I'm trying to do today. Akris writes, will there be some protection from creating thousands of processes by abusing iframes? For example, infinitely recursive iframes, huge lists of iframes, or a combination of this, some kind of preference limiting number of processes or depth or width of frames iframes tree? I don't believe we've gotten there yet. I mean, certainly that's an obvious attack vector. It's like a what we would call a denial of service attack or an evil trap, where you just like spam the browser with just nonsense so that it ends up consuming a lot of resources and preventing the user from doing something. That kind of protection should probably be factored in, but where it's way early days to be thinking about that. We're just trying to stand up the infrastructure, but I'm certain our security team has that on their radar. Okay, so the actual act of getting these routes is something that someone else has done for me or has written a patch to help me do. So I'm going to show you that patch. I think it's here. Ryan Hunt from the graphics team wrote a patch. And I'm going to follow this. And this is what I actually want to pull down. What's he doing here? Don't include browser parent for browser bridge parent. Have visit methods for visiting the tree. So it's like tree walking, and then set owner element. So he's like extracted out like a nice handy descendant walking function, and he's going to reuse that by adding a window global parents getter that visits all, and then gets at the window global parent and returns an array of window global parents, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted. Read only attribute array window global parent. Yes, 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 yes. That's what I want. Okay, so let's pull this down and build it, and then see if we can get somewhere with making this permit unload stuff work. Now, I might have to pause this and work on something else while I wait for this to come down. SmurfD says you need to change the tag of the bug note in Evernote. Not a closed bug yet. Need it. Oh, whoops. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I already have a note here. So I'm actually going to change, I'm going to delete this note. I'm going to merge it in with this note. No wonder I couldn't see the note. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is currently blocked. I'm blocked waiting, or like I'm blocked landing it, waiting on this bug. Our hunts patch here, which gives me the roots of each contiguous in process frame subtree. Okay. Yeah, lots of fancy words. I need like less fancy words. It's like the Hemingway style. Plain, speak plainly. The roots of each in-process frame subtree where all of the nodes are connected and belong to the same process. How's that? That's what I want. I want the roots of each of those. So I've now updated MozFab, and I'm going to patch. Whoops. No, I want to patch this. Let's pull this down. Our Hunt's patch. Then uncommitted change is present. What uncommitted changes? Oh, a thing I've been fiddling with for picture-in-picture. Brandy's like, more $5 words. Yeah, how can I need the Hemingway style. Speak plainly. Contiguous in, like, you should have seen the conversation I was having with R. Hunt and Nika trying to name this thing. I think, what did he end up calling it? Just Window Global Parents, which is what you're getting back. But I think what was it that we were batting about? P same process browsing context subtree parent. Short form is PSPBCSP. Super brief. Anyway, so I am now applying the patch. Interesting that we pull from gecko strings there. I don't know why. And now I'm going to actually rebase all of this stuff on top of central. Then I'm going to build. SmurfD's like, say that 10 times quickly. Oh man, I'm gonna say it 3 times quickly. Here we go. P same process browsing context subtree parent. P same process browsing context subtree parent. P same process browsing context subtree parent. It's hard. It's very hard. It's difficult. And that's why I don't know, engineers and naming things. Oh, conflict. Let's see if we can solve this conflict. I didn't even write this patch, but let's see if we can figure out this conflict. So a comment went in. Rebasing, don't include browser parent. What was the... Didn't include it. Right, we want to... Someone added a comment here, so that's fine. I'll just do that. Anything else? No. No? Okay. Resolved. Continue. Continue the rebase. Akris asks, does Mozilla have a performance team? Yes. We have several. We have several performance teams. Performance is a big deal. I actually, I'm the team lead for the front-end performance team. And then there's a separate performance team for like the runtime that does like trying to make the engine in general go faster. Automated testing for performance regressions? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Oh, and another regression, or another conflict. What is the conflict? What is your problem? And what was this from? When rebasing add visit methods. So what's he trying to do here? Okay, so we added these helper functions, these template functions. That's fine. And it was after the browser parent constructor. Okay, that's fine. So we just want to merge them like this, I think. And did he do anything else? Got rid of class bridge browser parent. Browser bridge parent. We didn't need that. He added it as, yeah, in the header. Okay, cool. So I think we're good here. Save and then resolve DOM IBC browser parent. So Ocris, automated testing for performance regressions. Yes, we do. There are a bunch of things that we do performance testing for, like page load speed's a big one. The JavaScript engine. Various UI operations. SmurfD points out that, yeah, there is a series that I've been doing off and on called The Joy of Profiling, where you see myself and some other engineers here in the Mozilla office, Toronto office, looking at performance profiles, trying to find ways of speeding up the browser. Is there anything else I could show? Like, there's some graphs here that show like how we're doing on various performance suites, comparing us to Chromium, I think. Speedometer, lower is better. I think are we beating Chromium at speedometer right now? I think we might be. Yeah, Chromium, we are apparently beating Chromium at speedometer. That's great. In this case, lower is better. Chromium, Firefox, our ARC64 TP6, we're currently doing about as well as Chromium on loading Amazon, but on desktop, we're doing significantly better. So yeah, we have a bunch of these. Uh-oh, missing data. T-Pain. Oh yeah, that's right. We switched that test. So yeah, we do performance testing, lots of performance testing. First paint went wild on April 16th, that's right. Now we're trying to figure out what that is. And tab switch time has been going down, that's good. Time to open Windows has been going down. Yeah. Search service init, getting cheaper. Yeah, lots of good stuff going. Okra says, I asked because when Gmail some time ago got a UI update, it was really slow for me, but has improved with time. That's right. We know. I think what happened, a lot of work from the engine team, I think, has improved Gmail loading time. And I actually think a lot of those changes, I'm not sure what build you're on, Okris, but I think a lot of those changes are going to go out in 67, which is in a couple of weeks, maybe a week or two more. Okay, so we have done our rebase. Now we need to build. So who knows how long this is going to take. While we wait for this, we can work on something else. Okra says he's on nightly. They're on nightly builds themselves. Okay, so you're getting all the fresh stuff. While we're waiting for this to build, what else would I like to do? Well, I actually want to check in on something I pushed to try. I pushed a patch to try to run some tests, and I'm hoping that they exploded. Test timed out. No, they did not. I need this to fail. So I'm going to re-trigger this test. Oh, bad convert native. Toggle transparent overlay 1.js. So I'm going to rerun this test like a whole bunch. I actually have to be logged in to do that. 1 second. Have to log in. Don't worry about that ping noise. That means something else. I'm just going to re-trigger this particular test a whole bunch, because that's the one I want. I wasn't sure which one it was going to be, so I just did them all. Probably not the cheapest thing I ever did. There's a UI option to retrigger job n times, eh? Says Barrett, sorry. Where? I mean, that's what I click, or I'm using the keyboard R to retrigger, but apparently there's one to retrigger a particular number of times. Add custom job. Add new job? Trigger all the time. What? Custom push. ... Where's dot? Oh, over here. ... Add custom job. I'm gonna assume you mean custom action. And then custom action, and then retrigger, Moki test, ref test, retrigger. Oh, and then I can choose how many times. Very nice. Very nice. Cool. That way I don't have to spam the decision task with like all these retrigger requests. Very cool. All right. Well, unfortunately, that didn't give me the information I wanted yet for this particular test. So I'm back to doing something else. And what would that be? I'm trying to fix a bug on Windows. I'm gonna connect to my Windows desktop. I'm just gonna do that off screen for a sec because I'm not sure if my email is closed. Okay, yeah, my email is right in the open there. I'm gonna close that. And what else do I need to close? Maybe I'll minimize that. Okay. So let me bring over my Windows build, my Windows machine. Whoop. Maximize window, fit to window. No, window, full screen. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. Yes, you can. Okay, cool. What I want to demonstrate, just look at this message. Okris asks, if they're queued manually, are they built in parallel and when using trigger times in sequence? So they are executed in parallel, assuming that we get the machine time. So on try, we're using like cheap spot instances, I think, from Amazon, I believe. And so we'll spin up some machine on AWS, and I think they'll just be executed in a first come, first serve. They'll download the build, they'll run the tests, and they'll exit. And then the machine will just evaporate. And so that happens in parallel. But it really depends on whether or not we get these cheap instances. What do I want to show you here? I want to show you where I've gotten to with some picture-in-picture stuff. I might actually have to build binaries. I'm not sure, because I'm trying to think of what I did last on this machine. Do I need to build binaries? If I don't, then this should be done in a second. Yeah, I didn't. All right, so let me show you what I've got so far. One of the things I think I fixed was on Windows. If you were like, here, let's look at The Daily Show. I'm gonna mute it. I'm gonna pull this up. If you were to, sometimes it appears, sometimes it doesn't, and it's kind of back, and sometimes it isn't. There's this like window border thing that I can't. It's back. It's back when I RDP in. That's a real pain because it was gone before. Well, the other thing I did was I made it easier to resize the window. Before it was actually pretty tricky. And You'll also notice that the controls disappear if you move the mouse out from the window. But as a consequence of that, one of the things that apparently I made harder was resizing the actual browser window. It's actually kind of difficult to get. There's like a 1 pixel area where I can actually grab the window and resize it, as opposed to like what we currently have, where if I were to pull this down, there's like I think there's something like 3 or 4 pixels here. That gives me more of an affordance to grab, whereas this one, it's really sensitive. And I've regressed that. I want to look at that today. Man, I'm really bummed out about this, like, these borders. That was not showing up when I'm on the actual desktop. Oh, on RDP I'm seeing it, but on the actual desktop I'm not seeing it. What could that be about? Try not to get distracted. All right. So one of the things that I think is related, looking inside the way that we calculate like hit tests on Windows, there's this function that I added within draggable region that's called by client margin hit test point. So client margin hit test point is called by this function WMNC hit test, which is called whenever a click occurs outside of the client area. Right. So I'm kind of speaking out loud. If NC client area has been moved, we're responsible for calculating where the resize margins are. So the non-client area is normally up here, but we draw on the title bar. We made it, however, so that we, like with my patch, that the draggable regions up here are considered the non-client area now. Or no, that was always the case. But I made it so that we dispatch mouse move events normally whenever we're in here, and that's what gave us the ability to hover and hide the controls in the picture-in-picture window. And so whenever we do a hit test inside the non-client area, we check to see if we're in, like we call this function. And this function, one of the things it does is it does a bunch of calculations to see, well, first of all, is the window resizable? Is the window maximized? Is the window, like, it also like gets things like the resize, yeah, non-client offset top and the caption height, but it finds at the minimum resizable border min size for each from top, left, right, and bottom. There's this value, K resizable border min size, which I think is what we care about. So if you read this comment, it says, when the client area is extended out to the default window frame area, which it is in the picture-in-picture case and in the normal browser window case, this is the minimum amount of space along the edge of resizable windows we will always display a resize cursor in, regardless of the underlying content. Great. That sounds super related. That's what we want to hear. Okris asked, was that nightly though? It had a blue theme. Yes. Yes, it was. This is nightly. It's blue because my default window coloring, title bar coloring is blue on my desktop. So we're doing this like hit test, and I suspect, yeah, so the cursor isn't showing. So the problem is not so much that the hit test is failing, it's that the cursor is showing the pointer rather than the grow shrink, like the hit test is doing the right thing. It's the cursor that's not displaying the correct thing. The cursor is only displaying the up and down arrow for like 1 pixel, and that's the problem, I think. So the hit test is doing the right thing. Which is interesting because you'd think that the hit test, if it returned like the top border, which I think is like right here, HT top, then that would tell Windows, hey, display the up-down arrow. In fact, let's do some logging here. Returning HT top, just for giggles, just giggles. Let us build this. Meanwhile, how's our local build going? Still building. Meanwhile, how's our try pushes? How are our try pushes going? They take about, this one took about 26 minutes to fail. When they pass, they take what? 23 minutes, and these have been going for 10 minutes. So we got about 10, 15 minutes until we get some more results here. And I'm really hoping for an explosion, because what I did was I made it so that, like, there's a type of error that we get, and I haven't been able to reproduce it locally, only in automation. And I've made it so that at the particular line, if we get the error, I crash. And I'm hoping that the stack gives me enough information to debug why the error is showing up. That's my hope. All right, back to Windows. Is this thing done building? It's linking libzool. Okay. So let's run, and I'm going to pass console so that we can see the log output on Windows. So yeah, you see returning HT top, false, 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 true. Now notice how it's returning. I think there's a region where I return true. Yeah, right there. It returns true, but my mouse cursor is not showing the grow shrink. It's not showing the up down arrow. And that's the problem. Okay. So what's the solution? We probably don't want that area to be considered draggable. That is my first thought. So there's something I was fiddling with before that maybe we could look at. So here, I say, hey, if you're within the draggable region, forward the message to the normal mouse move stuff. And here instead, what if I do this? I say, yeah, I'm going to comment that out. I'm going to say if the client margin hit test point equals hit test caption, then we're in a draggable region. And then do the same thing up here. Now we can probably clean that up. But for now, this will do. I had this before, but I want to look at it again because there was something wrong with it. Builds be building. Compile. And so if you weren't here back in, like, I don't know, January, February sometime, maybe it was March or April, it was a couple of months ago, if I was doing all this building and doing a stream, my machine would like kernel panic within 20 minutes. And I had no clue why. For the longest time, I was able to like run OBS and stream and build at the same time, and there wasn't an issue. But for some reason, sometime earlier this year, I would kernel panic a lot when I was doing like heavy building. So thankfully I've got like the separate streaming system. I've got a machine that's doing the streaming for me. It's doing the capture with like an HDMI capture card, or capture device. It's not really a card. And So thankfully, we're not kernel panicking these days. All right, our build on Windows is done. Let's pull this up. And the good news is that this seems to fix the issue. Like, anytime that we see true there, we get the little up down arrow. Like, it feels right. But the problem, there's now a problem. And the problem is that, let's go to this YouTube video. The problem is that our drag effects no longer work properly. So let's wait for that to fade out. And notice that, like, we're not getting our cool drag effects. Like, I'm seeing them flicker a little bit, but they show up here and then they disappear. It's really odd. It does make resizing the windows certainly easier, though. But the hover effect is no longer working. So I want to figure out why. Smurf D's like, pizza. I should get some product placement sponsorship for that. I don't know what that pizza joint was, but if you want to send me some free pizzas, I will forward them to hungry people. Let's see here. I was talking with someone in a Windows IRC channel. Never be triggered since we always say HT client. Unless M custom non-client is false, which seems unlikely. M custom non-client is false. It should be true because we've got, custom non-client areas, so we're drawing in the client areas. So I think I'm going to have to do some logging. Dispatching normal mouse move event. Printf dispatching mouse leave. From WMNC mouse move. Printf debugging. It's much easier this way whenever you're dealing with things like mouse events. I mean, what would be best is if I figured out how to do remote debugging. So I could have like two machines and then, because like as soon as you hit a breakpoint, then the mouse like you've shifted focus and like the mouse is suddenly fed a whole bunch of nonsense. And what I want is like a bunch of information one after the other, like all these events in a row. And that's really hard to do if you're shifting focus all over the place. How are these builds doing? 18 minutes. Soon. I'm hoping to see some crashes. And if not, then I'm going to trigger 20 more. Okay. Back to Windows. Build's done. Let's take a look at this logging. Dispatching normal, yep, mouse move event. Okay. Let's pull up our picture-in-picture window. So, what do we see? Dispatching normal mouse move event. But it's not doing what we expected. Now, is that because there's another place where, let's see, mouse in draggable region. Mouse in draggable area. True, false. Mouse and draggable area breaking early in WM mouse sleeve. Oh, that printf debugging. Build. That was a little bit of a Bill Nye reference there. Not sure if you caught it. All right, these coming in yet? 20 minutes. These have been baking for 20 to 21 minutes. Great news. Meanwhile, linking Zool. Maybe I'll play some sound effects. That's a good way to waste time.
It's me, Mario.
Okay, here we go. Okay, let's bring up video. Let's bring up the picture-in-picture window. Okay. Mouse and draggable region, false. So that's the problem. Mouse isn't considered to be in the draggable region. Why not? If not mouse in draggable area, and F mouse in area I think it's in some kind of number. We should probably new line that. Only caption is draggable, says Okris. Correct. That's why we're hit testing those that draggable region as HT caption. So maybe the hit test is failing, or the hit test isn't returning what we expect. It's returning something else. That could be. So that's the prevailing theory, is that the hit test is returning something else. What could it be? What should I use?
Hey, what happened?
But Pip, it's not caption? It is caption. The control area over top of the video is using a special CSS property, Mozilla only CSS property called Moz window dragging, which gives it which causes us to add that rect for that element to the draggable area region. And so the hit test should qualify it as HT caption. That's how it's supposed to work.
What happened?
Okay. What happened? So what's the value? Hang on, let me focus this. Mouse in area 1. What's 1 in the hit test parlance? Let me HT caption. HT client in the client area. What? Why? Margin hit test. Shouldn't be either of these things. Returning test result. Within draggable region. Not within draggable region. Returning test result. I know this is kind of redundant. Test result. Build. Now how about our try pushes, because I thought I saw those coming in. Yes, got some failures. Let's take a look. Yes, I've got a crash. That's what I wanted to see. Let's see this log. Crash. What? Wait a second. Abort. That's what I wanted to see. Abort. Handle event. Dispatch pointer from mouse or touch. Send a mouse event from JS. What happens is we eventually run some JS. Let me explode. See, that is not as helpful as I thought it was going to be. Man. I don't want the JS frames. I want to know why we threw. So we're on a click event. For some reason, man. JS internal common construct. Not as helpful as I thought it would be. That's too bad. I imagine there are others that are in the same boat, similarly unhelpful. Okay. Okay. Let me sign into beast mode and repush, but with something else. Just typing in a password there. Ocris has my paranoia up so that I try not to make sure, I try to make sure that my microphone's full of noise whenever I type in a password on the stream. So instead of crashing, stack. That might be helpful. Trying to get weak player content. Dump got weak player content. Checking if closed. Dump is not closed. Adding unload event listener. And then I'm going to, what job is it? BC3. 20. Moki test. What is it? Linux 64. Moki test browser. Chrome BC3. Debug. That's the one I want. Cool, 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 cool. Cool, 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 cool. So pushing that. Let's go back to Windows for a sec. Let's get some more information. Yeah, that's the 1 region, 2, 1. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 1. Returning test result 1. Wait a second. That's interesting. Notice how it's like test result 2, test result 1. Like, it's flip-flopping back and forth. I wonder if that's part of the problem. Mouse and draggable region, false. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2. Returning test result 1. Because the mouse is not in the draggable region. Oh, I think I know. Notice how it's all 2s here, and then down here it's 2s and 1s. Over here. I got a feeling I'm passing the wrong coordinates. So, NS window. It's supposed to take client margin hit test point. It's getting the x lparam and lparam in what coordinate space? NC hit test. Relative to the upper left corner of the screen. So it's got screen coordinates. I have a feeling that I'm converting mouse move to client. Yeah. Prime client. Wait, NC mouse move. NC mouse move. What's NC mouse move supposed to get? NC mouse move. The points, the coordinates are relative to the upper left corner of the screen. That's actually correct. So maybe it's the other one. Oh, it's the other one where I'm using it. Yeah, mouse move is taking the L param, the Y param here. And I need to get at the screen dimensions, the screen coordinates, L param to screen. So like, for example, if I move this up here, and I do this, and build this, yeah, Akra says I'm still using lparam instead of lparam client, and I'm supposed to. I think I'm supposed to be the hit test function as opposed to like. So I was using within draggable region. Within draggable region is expecting client x param and y param. Client margin hit test is expecting screen x and y, whereas within draggable region expects client x and y. Client margin hit test point expects screen x and y. And up here I was using client x and y still. I was properly using screen x and y. I was using client x and y up here. So I have a feeling this is going to address the issue. Once again, coordinate spaces screwed me. So let us check. Pull this up. Yeah, that's much better. And over here, the original bug. Yeah, that's much easier. Cool. All right. I noticed the border thing is kind of like coming and going on this one too. The border issue. So wacky. I don't know what to do about it. Okay, well, I'm going to clean up this patch and get it posted. Or let's see what I'm going to do. Let's get rid of all these printfs. Get rid of that, I guess. Get rid of that one. These ones are not mine. Cool. All right. The next step is I think I want to turn this into like a helper function, just a private helper function. So S Windows CPP, or hang on, I think I actually already have within draggable region. Screen to client. So what this should probably be is like screen X, screen Y. And this will just return that screen X, screen Y equals HT caption. And then I want to put this, drop this in here instead. And this is actually the way it used to be. So I'm gonna kind of revert to the way it used to be. If client, it's like if mx or point x or point y and that thing or that thing, then cached hit test result. Draggable region. Test point equals y, and then instead of saying it contains it, if m draggable region dot contains point x, point y, test result equals ht caption, else test result equals ht client, and then we're going to say the cached hit test result is the test result. And then turn cached hit test result equal, I think 0, and then this window should be, what was it before? How do I get out? There we go. Cached hit test result. What was it before? An int 32t. Okay. See if that builds okay. It would be great to include stream client in the name of the function to make it clear to the caller instead of just the parameter names. I agree. I agree. Although I'm tempted to stick with the convention of the file because I don't own this file. Screen to client, let's see. Screen. I'm not a module owner or even a peer of this file or this module, so I can't really make that kind of like code call. But I agree, that'd be nice. All right. Let's see here. Resize the window. Let's get ourselves picture in picture. Great. Got our hover state. Awesome. Pretty jazzed about that. All right, I will put that up for review shortly. Let me close this down. In the meantime, did this thing finish building locally? Did I get I think I got a local build done. Yeah, I did. I don't really have time to work on it during the stream. The first thing I talked about, but the build's finished. That's great. And this thing's building too. So in the end, did I work on what I planned to? No, but that's how these things go. As I told you, no plan survives breakfast, and that's exactly what happens in the raw whenever you're doing software development. At least for myself and Gecko, it's like I'm stuck on something, or I'm waiting for a build, so you switch focus to something else. It's quite a bit of context switching, but that's how I keep moving. You know, sometimes builds take time. People are working on making those builds take less time, but in the meantime, while a build is occurring, because I need a build to occur, I have to switch focus. So on that note, I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching episode 177 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. Hacked together maybe a solution for this window thing, this hovering thing, this window resize thing, and hopefully if all goes well, I'll get that landed in Central before the day is through, or before the week is through. I'd like to get that in before Uplift, because it's a regression on Nightly. And with that, I'm going to call it there. So thanks again for watching episode 177 of The Joy of Coding. I hope you have yourselves a great week. I'll hopefully see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Before I go, just a reminder, check out the form in the agenda. The form is how you let me know what you thought of the stream. So smash that form link and fill it in and let me know what you thought. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of, what's good, what's bad. Would you prefer if I was more excited and animated, or do you prefer it when I'm more like relaxed? Do you like kind of like an ASMR style hacking? Let me know. Click that form link in the agenda. What the cool kids are saying, ring that bell and subscribe or something. Yeah. All right, take care. Bye-bye.